Welcome, my friends. I'm Dave Champion. This is my fabulous co-host, Bill Carnes, and together we are Totally Unprepared. And you notice, in our sandwich of love, we have a guest, the famous or infamous, depending on who you're speaking to, Dennis Hof. Dennis, a pleasure.
I'm glad to be here.
Good to have you.
I've heard all about you guys, and I still like you.
Nice.
Talking about the wrong people.
Dennis is a Libertarian candidate for Assembly District 36, which covers almost all of Nye County, with the exception of a little bit of the northern part, about 2/3 of Lincoln County, which encompasses around 425 voters, and a small portion of Clark County, which has a Mount Charleston, a tiny little section of North Las Vegas, and then out to Moapa Valley.
All right. How many voters approximately there, would you guess?
There's about 10,000 in Clark County, and there's around 25,000 in Nye County.
Okay.
Well, you get your numbers down. He's exactly right. And just a few hundred libertarians, and mostly Republican.
Right.
And so we're crafting different messages.
And why do we have a Libertarian Party? Because the Republican Party left them long ago. Same with the Constitution Party and countless other conservatives that all used to be Republicans decades ago. Yep. And then when the Republican Party started moving more and more towards the center, more and more towards the left end, it left the others in the dust. People claim that those folks left the Republican Party when in fact the Republican Party left them. Their principles didn't change. And no. I say that in the U.S. Senate, Joe Lieberman is kind of the measuring point. Used to be considered very left. Mm-hmm. Then he was considered moderate left. Now he's an independent. Joe Lieberman's politics have not changed. The definition of left has changed.
Well, you know my story. I mean, I was in the Young Republicans Club as a teenager. When I first was able to vote, I registered as Republican. I was a dyed-in-the-wool, as fervent Republican as you could get, probably through my mid to late 30s.
You're talking Goldwater Republican.
Absolutely,
yes. Absolutely.
And just as you were saying, when I'm about my mid or late 30s, I looked at the Republican Party and I said, wait a second. My views, my fundamental core views have not changed, but they're no longer in alignment with the Republican Party. And so I left, and here we are with a Libertarian today.
Well, yeah. I look at myself as a conservatarian, and what I mean by that is I'm a fiscally conservative guy, mm-hmm. you know, but I don't want to hear about the far right wing of the Republican Party's social issues. I just don't want to hear about it.
You
okay?
and me both.
The people, the Supreme Court said abortion. Leave it at that. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to bother people that want marijuana. I'm not a smoker, but I don't mind anybody does. Don't bother me because I got a bunch of guns. I don't care if you smoke weed as long as it doesn't affect me. Mm-hmm. In the same way with same-sex marriage. You know, I let them do it. I'm not against it. And I'll tell you why. Because there's more girls for me to date.
You know, just kidding. Two things. One, it's interesting. Gay marriage is all the rage until they're going to start facing gay divorce. Then it might not be quite so popular.
Right.
As a joke. The other thing is I was actually in an elongated email discussion back and forth. And Dave, I don't even know if I let you know, but unless you saw the post I put on my Facebook page just announcing it was happening. I'm going to keep the names private to protect the innocent.
That sounds best.
A long, engaging email discussion with a local guy that I know who is evangelical as can get. He had said in a group discussion that I was in about a week or 10 days before that somehow that gay marriage infringed upon his rights. Now, he's married, got a family, so I was asking him, how is that? Nothing had anything to do with the Constitution. All had to do with the Bible. So I kept drawing him back to the Constitution, and it was like, well, you know that the founders wrote this with Judeo-Christian principles. And I go, okay. So it turned into this long, drawn-out discussion. But what it turned into was essentially total hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. And, okay, maybe it doesn't infringe upon my rights unless they do these other things too. But right now it doesn't.
Well, you saw just the other day a mutual friend of ours on Facebook accused me of being intolerant of religion simply because I'm non-religion and I think religion's silly. And wait, how does that make me intolerant of religion? So I'm with you 1,000%. There's this what I call the hard Christian right. Mm-hmm. Nothing against them is their faith, their beliefs, carry on, right? But let's please
keep it out of politics.
Keep it out of our Constitution, keep it out of our law, keep it out of our politics.
I agree, and now I've got some ministers supporting me in the area. Ed Goodhart told me about one today. Tina Trenner has another minister that's supporting me because they just want change. They're tired of things being like they are.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room. You own about a half a dozen brothels or so?
Yeah. And
about a quarter of the ones in Nevada that are still open now.
I own 7, and it's about 40%.
Okay.
I also own a truck stop, gas station, a bunch of restaurants, apartments. I'm a small businessman for 40 years. And, people, they know me because of my TV show, and I also, on HBO, this is in 67 countries, 29 languages. I also produce a series for Cinemax. So they know me because a lot of sensationalism in that business. But Nevada's got it right. Nevada's got it right. I look at the Bunny Ranch as a 61-year-old social experiment that works real good. And if you don't believe it, come to the Bunny Ranch and check it out, or any of my brothel, and then let's drive down the strip and see what's going on there, and you'll get it. It'll come to you.
Yeah. And we were having a discussion at lunch today before we drove up here, where we talked about what you actually have brought to that industry, where, that industry may be looked at by many people askance, but yet here you were a businessman who entered that industry and brought your business principles to the industry, which may not have been rife with quality business principles before you entered it.
You're absolutely correct. I'm glad you noticed that, because I made changes. I made lots of changes in the industry, which is better for the workers, better for the consumer. And the main thing is we're big taxpayers. We're big taxpayers. Tony DeMeo, the ex-sheriff, I love Tony. And Tony says, he made public statements saying that if it wasn't for the brothels, we wouldn't have an EMT system. In northern Nevada, I pay $500,000 in fees and licenses. And so you have a choice. Do you want the money to go in the hands of criminals, which perpetuate more criminal activity, or do you want it run by the professionals? And the best example is liquor. Capone, the gangsters, the politicians that got paid off, that's who made the money. When you legalize it, now $6 billion a year go in the federal coffers, and they control quality, age, distribution, and different things.
Safety.
Product
safety.
Same thing with the numbers racket. The numbers racket, and I know the chief in New York, he's my friend, and the numbers racket was big money. Now it's California Lotto and Powerball, that money going to do good things. Prohibition doesn't work. It's never going to work in the sex business, and Nevada's got it right. And we did a robocall, and the question was this: would you vote for a gentleman for Assembly District that owns a brothel? And I said, no. Would you vote for a gentleman that's a businessman that owns numerous businesses, including brothels? No. Hit it right between the eyes. Okay. It came back 71%. Said, yes, I would. Now, they said, would you vote for a person that voted for the largest tax increase in Nevada's history, the commerce tax? 80% said no. The same amount that voted against the margin tax.
The same amount that actually already voted on it at the polls.
Exactly.
Right. And of course, when we talk about the politician who voted for the highest increase in taxation in Nevada history, we're talking about James Oscarson. And, you're his competitor, and there is a sign that he put up, which I know it's intended to be an insult, but I tell you, the first time I saw it, I burst out laughing. I'm driving down the road, I look up, here's this billboard, and it says, Dennis Hof is a pimp. And my very first thought, knowing Oscarson as I do, was, I would rather vote for a straight-talking, honest, do-what-he-says pimp than a backstabbing politician who just screwed every family in Nevada. Any day, all day long.
I think we call that a political prostitute.
There we go.
Absolutely. So he puts up a billboard on 160. On one side, it's got him with the kids. It says James Oscarson. On the other side, it's got a picture of me with some girls, and it says pimp across it. But when you go by it quickly, you look at it, it says James Oscarson pimp. So everybody was laughing and saying, did he get in the business? All right. So then the other thing is, I wish they would have taught him in nursing school. His whole business life revolves around him being a nurse. That's where it all started. And it's a great profession, but you don't know much about business, operating a business. I'm the guy that signs the front of the check. He's the guy that signs the back of the check. And there's a huge difference. I understand business. And all business is, all Nevada is the same business I have, except it's got a lot more zeros. We got to buy cars, paper clips, toilet paper. We got to have health insurance. We have employee issues, human resources. It's all the same thing. I know how to run a business. So he does this billboard. And they didn't teach him copyright infringement in nursing school. So Bloomberg News, and Getty Images, who distributes for Bloomberg News, they're on him, and 24 hours later, the sign is gone, all right? Because they don't play around. Now, but you know what happens? I get people calling me, Dennis, I love you. I'm going to vote for you, but you're supporting yes on one. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, Bloomberg funds all that on that number one.
Right.
So I'm a guest on his TV show. I'm no more than a guest. I don't know about his political views, and I don't care. Now, I don't like the fact that what he's doing with his number one.
Right.
But I don't have any control over Bloomberg. We have the control at the vote. So please don't associate me with Bloomberg and guns.
Right. And by the way, since Bill and I have never talked about it, I'm going to put out my 2 cents. No on one. We've never talked about it here on the show.
Let's talk about why.
Wait a minute. I want to interject as well. I'm not so sure about this no.
Okay.
I think it should be absolutely hell no.
No, I was wondering where you were going.
If you're dumb enough to vote, if you're dumb enough to vote on one, then you are too stupid to have actually read the 4 pages of the U.S. Constitution, the 1 page of the Bill of Rights, and the next 2 pages of the 15 amendments that happen to be existing at this point.
It's you know what? It sounds good. They've got good sales pitches, but when you look into it, no. Kenny Furlong, the respected sheriff in Carson City, amazing guy. You know, loan a gun to your cousin, store a gun at your cousin's house, go to jail. And it give you all the different things. It's the slippery slope, and that's what my opponent is on also.
Absolutely.
And if I'd like to spend a minute and talk about it, because he has an A rating with NRA. So do I, and I'm proud of that. The difference is this: under James Oscarson's watch, the medical marijuana came about. And he headed the Health and Human Resources.
He's chair of the Assembly Health and Human Resources.
Okay, so here's what the vets do to me. They call me and say, Dennis, I need your help. I'm a vet. I've got problems. I don't want to take the hardcore meds.
Sorry to interrupt. I want you to get this whole story out.
Okay.
And we're up against the clock. We need to go out for a break. He'll tell you about the vets when we get back right after this. Welcome. We are back, and our very special guest today, Dennis Hof, who's running for office, competing against James Oscarson, the backstabber. And you were just sharing with us that the veterans approach you, and they say what to you?
I spoke with them, and I didn't even understand this until they taught me. And then I checked with Ed Goodhart, the former assemblyman, 3 terms, who's supporting me, and Michelle Fiore, who's supporting me, and they say, you're right. So, a vet. He's an honorable guy. He's taking painkillers. He needs help. Goes to the doctor, gets a medical marijuana card. Does it the legal way, pays the fee, does it right. Now, he can't buy a gun because of that. He also, per Sharon Worley and Kenny Furlong in Carson City, you can't have a concealed weapon permit because the feds have that information. So what's happened and James headed this committee, and this is why I say my political people like me to say he's mushy. No, he's not mushy. He's weak. He's just weak on Second Amendment because he let this happen. So when you get a medical card, that information is available to the Nevada Department of Public Safety and the feds. You go and you buy your gun, you check it off, whether you check no or yes that you use drugs.
Addicted to a substance.
Yep. Either way you check, they're going to run you through Washington. They're going to come back and say, no, he can't have a gun. So our vets can't have a gun. And it's even worse because a vet's got a marijuana card, possession of marijuana, and a weapon. It's a felony. It's a felony. Then you'll lose your gun rights forever.
Unbelievable.
When that happens. Now, if you have illegal marijuana and your gun, it's a misdemeanor, and they're going to go, and they're going to charge you $100, and that's the end of it. He's weak, and people don't understand it. The average person just doesn't get it. Like on number one, the sound bites they have, they sound pretty good. They make sense, but it's nonsense when you really delve into it and find out. No. This is the slippery slope to take our weapons away from us.
It becomes obvious that it's a slippery slope because had one been in effect in Nevada for the last 10 years, it wouldn't have stopped even a single gun crime that would have happened in Nevada. Now, keep in mind, Nevada's pretty heavily popularly armed, especially in the rural areas. I mean, in Vegas, there's these various groups that are on social media that talk about I saw somebody open carry. If I went online and talked about every open carry person I saw Justin Prump on a daily basis, I'd be too busy typing all of that in. So in the rurals, we carry guns. In the cities, not quite as much, but they have every right and every freedom to do it.
Well, I was at a county commissioners meeting yesterday, and we're going to talk about dirty politics soon, so I'll bring this up. But so I walk out, and there's a gentleman running for county commissioner. His name's Koenig, right?
John Koenig.
Yeah, and I'd met him before. Seems like a nice guy. I wasn't sure how I was going to vote. I really hadn't looked into it. And he walked into that county commissioners meeting with a weapon on. I'm voting for this guy.
Yep.
I'm voting for this
John's
guy.
actually running in the district that I live in. So
Really?
he's got my vote.
Speaking of carrying guns, it's funny. I met a friend of yours last week.
I'm sorry, I just want to counter. The only person that John Koenig's running against is the joke of the town when it comes to politics is Harley Culkin, who's a Democrat who hasn't got a snowball chance. Yeah, Harley's the guy that ran for lieutenant governor in the primary 2 years ago, and none of these candidates beat him in this county in his own home.
Koenig, call me. I got a check for you. I've spent a few $1 million with construction vendors and improvements, Renee Morales and paving and everybody.
Morey's great.
I had one problem. Guess who it was with? Harley Culkin.
Imagine.
Koenig, call me.
Yeah. So you were going to say you ran into someone.
I'm standing waiting to pay for my meal, and this voice behind me says, "Oh, Dave Champion's more slender in real life than on television." And I turn around and we talked about who that was. And then I realized that because when we switched chairs several months back, I've got a full-size weapon on my side that's the camera seeing the whole time of the show.
Yeah, I get it. Your vanity has said, "How has that happened?" And you're running through it, right?
My vanity. Yeah.
Okay, so let me tell you the trick. After having a TV show that's in 67 countries for 14 years, you turn a little bit of an angle, and when you look at the camera, you don't look flat because it flattens your face. You look this way or this way with your eyes back to the camera.
How's it working, guys?
It'll take 10 pounds off you.
I'm still fat.
Yeah.
You guys are gonna give me a headache, like I'm playing ping pong here. So, should we talk about some issues?
I think we should.
We're having too much fun.
And let's start with this. Why are you running?
I'm running because I'm mad. I'm a businessman for 40 years. I've paid a lot of taxes. I'm a good citizen. I got a clean record. I've been scrutinized more than anybody. I've been entrusted by the state of Nevada to have the hardest license there is to get. 10 years of my life FBI check, tax returns, compiled financial statements, serious scrutinization. I could buy a casino in a minute. Okay. So
what's this story that your opposition's putting out that you've got a $250,000 tax lien?
It's a lie. It's an absolute lie. It's an absolute lie. And what I put out is that I sign the front of checks and I make a lot of money and I'm proud of it because I worked hard for it. I will bet my Mercedes that I've paid more in federal income tax in the last 3 years than he's made in the last 15 years if you take out the money he gets from the special interests.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
so not the payoff.
Right.
Not the payoff.
Can't count that. Okay. So it's a lie. Now here's their lies. These guys are so bad, and he makes the worst girl that I've had working for me in the brothel that we fired look good. Okay? And I mean this sincerely. So first thing is, Channel 13 calls me. "Dennis, you got a warrant for your arrest. Oscarson's people just gave it to us." I'm like, what? What are you talking about? So I said, "Stay right here. Get my attorneys." 24 hours later, he's in front of a judge. Now, the guy's name is Dennis Hof. He was born in 71. I'm born in 46. I'm 70. Big difference.
How could they get this confused, right?
Yeah, lives in Cathedral City, California. Everybody knows I've been in Nevada for 40 years, okay? 40 years I've lived here. And the most embarrassing part, this guy's driving a 20-year-old Toyota. Okay? That made me madder than anything.
And if he lives in Cathedral City, he's almost certainly gay.
They throw something out there a mailer saying that I'm voting for Clinton. I get stopped. I was in Irene's last night with Michelle Fiore and Ed Goodhart and a bunch of people. And this, "Dennis, I'm voting for you, but why Hillary?" I'm like, what? It's a lie. Now, the girls at the ranches, I like to get them involved in the political process because most of them are young and they have never been involved in it.
I remember a few years back, last cycle, you had in the primaries Pimping for Paul.
Pimping for Paul.
And it looked like an incredible PR.
It's exactly what it is. But by getting the girls involved, it gives us PR.
Sure.
And every time I'm on the Today Show or Good Morning America, cha-ching, cha-ching, it tells people that we're there. And so this time we got everybody together. And unanimously, it was Hookers for Hillary. I didn't agree with it, but I'll tell you the reason. The reason was, and the Republicans can't overcome this one. It's a tough one to overcome. A working girl in Nevada, and a lot of them with six-figure incomes, could not buy health insurance because the health insurance companies lumped them in the same as the illegal prostitutes, drug problems, pimps, and all that.
Now, you're talking about girls that have to go through background checks and get sheriff's cards?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. They could not buy health insurance. So you got girls with six-figure incomes that had to self-insure. Now, with Obamacare, there's no exclusions. If you pay, you're in, okay? And so the girls like that. Dennis, I don't want to lose coverage for my children. And so I didn't have an answer for them. So a lot of them were that. Now, some of them are just the opposite. Once Trump came on the forefront and did what I'm doing, the reality star that's out there having fun, then no, we're starting a new organization, Tarts for Trump. Okay? And it's all a joke. It's all in jest. But the point is, I got 540 girls that are thinking about the political process, and that's important to me.
Absolutely.
So Oscarson, he puts that word out there. It's a lie. It's all lies. This guy, if his mouth's moving, he's lying. He lied about taxes. I'm a Republican. I'm not going to raise your taxes. They've got it on film. You guys know it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you got it all. Okay. So what's he do?
That's the stabbing in the back portion that I'm referring
Exactly.
to. Yes.
29 out of 32 times he votes. And if you go to DennisHof.com, you're going to see it all. You're going to see every way he voted and the things that he voted bad. So 29 out of 32 times he voted to raise your taxes and mine. The commerce tax being the big one. He just lies, and he will say anything and vote for anything if they're putting money in his pocket. Go to the reports, take it $500,000. And you know what it is? It's money from across the hill. That's where you want this across the hill. It's not real Nevada. This is not rural Nevada. This is real Nevada to me because I live here. It's real as it gets. Okay, and he takes that special interest money from the guys across the hill. How are you going to tell a guy no when he gave you all this money?
I see it as an effect of making a crappy vote when there's money promised to you, and then after the vote is counted, you're making the phone call to those donors and saying, "Make it rain, bitches. I just cast your vote."
There you go.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. And I'm not taking any money. It's just small money, local money. And, 95. I saw one today, $95. And so that's nice. It's very sweet of everybody. I need the money. I want to retire my debt. I'm self-funded, and I'm spending a lot of money. It costs money to fight these special interest groups. These PAC money, they're giving him money for everything. Every time he turns around. He spent $150,000 almost to beat Tina Trenner, who's a very nice person, and there's still question about whether that was all legit or not. I've got Michelle Fiore right now talking to the Clark County registrar about how they messed up these ballots on Tina. I don't know if it would affect it or not. I haven't dug into it, but I don't want it to happen to me. So the lawyers are sending the letters to them saying, "Excuse me, you better get your act together." Michelle's going down to meet with the registrar and said, "You watch what you're doing. This guy's watching every move everybody makes." And so he spent all this money. He got all this money. And then, because he thought I just did this as a joke. No, I didn't do it as a joke at all. I did it as the backup plan. All I want is this man fired for lying. And folks, fire the liar. I'm telling you, it's the right thing to do.
Keep in mind the taxes that were raised, they call it the commerce tax. But when businesses incur extra expenses, what do they do with that?
Pass it on to the consumer.
They pass it on to the consumer. We are all paying for this. Yeah. Ed Goodhart, who does dairy, it's difficult for him to pass it on because nationally the industry sets the price for a gallon of milk for a block of cheese. So what he's had to do is lower the amount of employees he's had and then make the other ones that are there work harder. He's had to cut overhead in a really crappy way because he's stuck. But car dealers,
He's moved a lot of the cows to Kansas.
he's had to.
And employees out of the state of Nevada.
Yeah.
So when you, it's the Republican.
So that's
it's the Republican
causing-
deal. You raise taxes, you lose jobs and businesses. We all know it.
And this is exactly what Republicans, when they campaign, say they will not do.
Exactly. That's the big part. He lied about everything.
You're harming businesses, you're costing people's jobs, and you're raising taxes. And in this district, Assembly District 36, one of the top 2 most depressed financially districts in the entire state.
In a horrible economy.
And we'll be right back. You can bring us back, or I can bring us back.
One of us.
I can
We're
bring us
totally
back.
unprepared. Dennis can bring
That's
us back.
right.
We're back.
And we are back, yeah. All right, there was a comment.
Hi, this is Dennis Hof. These are my friends, Bill and Dave, and I'll be doing an interview with them today, and they'll be telling you all the reasons to vote Hof.
Yeah, we just thought we'd hang out with Dennis today.
By the way, it's H-O-F. There's a lot of ways to spell Hof. I get it, my last name, people want to throw an E in it or spell it with a K, whatever. Champion, I think, is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I bet they mess up Dave all the time.
Well, I get things like campy and they leave the H out and stuff like that. We talked about, just before the commercial break, we talked about how James Oscarson is receiving a lot of special interest money. Now, you and I have discussed on this show a number of times that if we're going to straighten out the political system, we need to get the special interest money out of politics.
Money out of politics.
However, we live in the real world, right? Where there is special interest money. The problem I really see with James Oscarson, and why James Oscarson needs to be replaced with Dennis Hof, is not so much special interest money, but that the special interest money that he's taking is causing him to vote adverse to the desires and best interests of the constituents he allegedly represents. That's the problem. If he was taking special interest money to cut taxes to help families, I don't think there'd be anybody griping.
It's interesting because, of course, I asked him about this. I said, why would you vote for taxes? And he told me, he said something along, I will have to paraphrase. I cannot quote because I don't remember exactly the numbers. Something like 80% of the businesses that contacted him wanted it. So if you notice, a lot of the donations that he's gotten have come from the casino industry, which is unaffected, and the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce has given a lot of donations. It's all public information based on his reports that he has to do. So the thing is I know, I don't know, probably 100 different business owners or more just locally.
And nobody wanted it.
Not a single one of them wanted it.
He didn't
I'm
call
like,
me.
Right.
We're talking about the local people that have businesses in District 36. How many of them said, hey, by the way, can you raise my taxes? And by the way, as well, it's essentially 2.0. It's a picture by a different name. The commerce tax versus the margins tax that 79.5% of Nevadans rejected just a few months before that at the ballot box when he was reelected. And every single person who's in the state assembly, Democrat or Republican, in the Senate, Democrat or Republican, that has constituents, 80% said, no, we don't want that. And then they go on and they
Repackaged it.
repackaged it, kissed the governor's feet, and sent it up.
And they throw the little things in there. It's for the kids. It's education. How can we say no to education? Well, let me tell you what he did. Let me tell you exactly what he did. He forgot to tell you that rural Nevada, AD 36 doesn't get any of that money. It goes to Clark County and Washtenaw County. Think it over. We didn't get any of that money.
And let's talk about where that money goes. We've hit it on the show before, but let's hit this. First of all, in that bill, in the tax bill, the $1.5 billion tax bill, none of it has to be spent on education. It's earmarked towards education, but it doesn't have to be spent there. The Assembly just left a special, the entire state legislature, Assembly and Senate, just left a special session where they voted for $650 or $750 million worth of room tax money to be spent on a stadium to lure the Oakland Raiders here, right? Okay. All of that money is specifically earmarked in law for education.
Earmarked.
So they just took $750 million earmarked for education and voted to reassign it to build a stadium that we don't get repaid, and all private industry gets the money on that. So where this money's been going, keep in mind that it was now 12 years ago almost, that Kenny Gwynn, when he was governor, he pushed, and they voted and they approved the biggest tax hike in history for the children. So what did the teachers unions in Clark County do? They ended up negotiating for smaller class sizes. In an effort to do that, we have to buy land, build buildings. The buildings are being built by union labor at prevailing wage, and then you hire teachers and administrators that join this same union and pay dues at the fastest growing school district in the entire country. None of that money has gone, that was actually 13 years ago now, none of that money actually helped benefit education in the classroom. And it's interesting because the kids that started with that money started in first grade. They just graduated this last May at 49th in the country.
49th worst
State,
educational
yeah.
system.
As a matter of fact, the 6 territories are included in that. Guam has better education than
And
Nevada.
when we talk about the sports stadium and the way they financed it, when we talk about, a lot of people on the right, will speak against welfare. Was that not corporate welfare for?
That's exactly what it is. Picking winners and losers.
What if I go to them and say, you know what? I want to build a $50 million mega brothel resort out here, and I want the state to pay for it.
I want to build.
indemnify it.
What was the name of that bar in Dusk Till Dawn? The Titty Twister.
Yeah. And so you want them to just gift you the land? How's that, right?
Yeah, that's fine. And
Right. And then give you 20 years worth of tax incentives. Now we're talking about Tesla and Faraday. So Tesla, Faraday, football, all these great things. But after they gave Tesla what would be about $1.5 billion worth of tax breaks, what did they do 6 months later? They saddled them to the rest of us through the corporate tax that's passed down to the rest of us, to everybody who's here.
I understand from people in the car business that it's a 50-50 whether Tesla's going to make it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We just did all this and they're not going to make it. But, talk about businesses. Nobody called Jim Marsh, who's a big employer in 8036. He's got the big hotel, the Ramada there in Tonopah. He's got business in Goldfield. He's got a long street out here, all great places. Mm-hmm. He's a big employer. He told me just a couple days ago, this commerce tax costed him $150,000 a year. Now, who do you think's going to pay for that? Not Jim. He's not going to change his lifestyle. He needs to make a certain profit and return off his investment, as I do.
Absolutely.
And so you want to buy a Kia? Yeah, raise the price a little bit.
Yeah.
You want to stay at the Ramada? Because another part of it that's terrible is they lump your businesses together. Jim's little place in Goldfield, just a little motel bar. It's a cute little place. Love it. It doesn't make any money. But now, because he owns them all, common ownership, and I'm the same way. If my businesses separately, only a couple of them would come under this, okay? But you lump them all together, everything I own, guess what? I'm paying. And I have no choice but to pass it on. You're going to see it in the price of gas. Potato chips are going up at the Alien Travel Center. Mm-hmm. Shot glasses. We have no choice.
That or people lose their jobs. Well, between pay and benefits, how many people would Jim Marsh have to do away with?
Sure.
3 or 4.
And we are hurtling towards robotics and automation in business. So, the big thing was 6-8 months ago, they were talking about, people in the fast food industry wanting $15 an hour. At the same exact time, when the corporations that they're seeking that pay from were experimenting with automation and robotics to replace their jobs.
And they were being forced to that because they can't afford to sell a $3 hamburger when a $15
Correct. So now,
is there.
On this tax issue, when we talk about these business people trying to find ways to adjust their profit so they continue to profit even though they've got a heavier tax burden, robotics and automation, people can be out of work because the employer sees robotics and automation as a better option. Taxing yourself into prosperity never works.
No.
And you have guys like James Oskinson are stabbing his constituents in the back, trying to tax into prosperity, which we all know. Anyone who takes Economy 101 knows that doesn't work.
Danny Thompson from the AFL-CIO, the lobbyist, he told me that James voted on a bill that cut construction workers' pay. He said, Dennis, send a mailer out to the Democratic women letting them know he cut their pay by 10% because he voted to cut prevailing wage by 10%, and it's stuck now, and they took a 10% pay cut. It's just it wasn't good for anybody. Why would businesses that were on the fence come to Nevada? Don't come to Nevada. Oops, I'm not going there now. Yeah. $4 million is not much. But by the way, you can have a business that does $4 million worth of business and only make $100,000 off of it.
Exactly so.
And there's very small margins. Like I'm going to give you an example. I sell about $300,000 worth of gas at my Alien Travel Center.
Okay.
I make about $5,000. $5,000 off of $300,000 worth of business. Where do I get the money? You guys pay.
One of our good friends, Butch Becker, owns Ammo Supply Warehouse.
Yep.
And he's got millions of rounds of ammunition that he sells out of there monthly, right? There's huge volume, but a very small margin.
Absolutely.
And he has to pay taxes based on having that small margin on essentially gross receipts, as it's all wrapped up into business license fees and all this other crap.
It's a detriment to businesses coming to Nevada, and James Oscarson didn't care. But you know why? Because the guys over the hill put all that money, that big bag of cash, and just stuffed it in his pocket and said thank you. And I'm sure the governor's like, it's okay, James. It's all going to work out. I'll take care of you. We'll support you. But
his PR company is now running his campaign, R&R Partners. That was part of the deal. It had to have been. R&R Partners, they didn't give a damn about AB 36. But you vote right, and we'll have R&R run your campaign.
So, voters, show this guy, show the special interest, show the R&R partners, show these people that don't really give much of a darn about AD 36. You're fired. You are fired. It's just that simple. He's got to be fired.
Yeah, when all of his money comes from outside the district, who's he working for?
Follow
the money.
That's
Follow the right. And the thing that really, really stings, that they still say the mantra is, it's for the children. That $1.5 billion, it's for the children, and nothing in that law says it must be spent on education.
And whenever I hear for the children, how Clinton-esque. And one more thought.
And they just robbed the children last week. How can you say it's for the children?
People are so incensed at what's going on nationally in politics, and they feel, with the polls show that they feel like the average American voters in national politics feels completely disenfranchised. They feel like whatever's going on in the national level, they have no say, no control over it. Well, here's an opportunity at a more local level. If you feel disenfranchised, if you feel like they're getting away with stuff and you can't stop them, vote for this man. Show people like James Oscarson, you know what? We're not just going to stop you, but we're going to stop you dead in your tracks because you're a backstabbing traitor.
And send a message to those politicians that do that, especially the rhinos, the Republicans in name only, of which there are far too many that voted for this tax go through. It needed 3/4 of the Assembly vote and 3/4 of the Senate vote, and it passed.
Yeah, which is quite a burden to meet.
With Republican majorities.
Yeah.
I think what I'd like people to know is this. I'm doing this for the right reason. I've committed myself to step away from a very profitable organization that I have, 27 corporations, to take a $12,000 a year job. And I've also committed, when I win, that money that I get is going to local charity.
No.
I'm doing this for the right reason. I'm not in this to be a career politician. I'm the guy that wants to go in and right the ship. It's sinking. Right the ship, get it going right, and then step out and go back to my businesses and have people that care about Nevada that aren't rhinos run the state.
And to develop some responsible Republicans to take your place when you step out.
That's exactly what I want to do. And I'm talking to numerous people.
And we'll be back right after these words.
Welcome back. It is segment 4, where we generally will go through your viewer emails when you send them to us at daveandbillshow.com. Also, go online, check out all of our historical content at totallyunprepared.info, because .info was $6, .com was $20, and it came out of my pocket. So it's .info. Got it? Good.
You saved $14.
I did. I saved $14, and that's a good meal.
That's right.
That's how you, at Hefe's, where we went to lunch today.
As well, we have a carpet update, and bing, it is still here with all the lighting mess. However, as we prepared to fire up the cameras for this show, I complimented the station owner on how nice the kitchen looked that was updated a couple, 2-3 months back. And he said, yeah, and you know what? The next thing we're going to do is lay down this carpet. So next month will be a year that this carpet's been sitting here. We'll see if it actually, because I'm going to bring a birthday cake if that crap's here next month.
It's going to be funny as hell.
I am.
Let me tell you one of the things that concerns me. Here's the good thing about AB 36 is that it's affordable advertising to reach the people, although mailers are expensive. Newspaper is not that expensive. TV is not that expensive. The bad thing about it is that we don't have any interaction. The paper does not have the depth, the reporters to ask the hard questions, like you guys are talking about. These are things, vets that can't buy a gun, all these different things.
And on top of that, I got to say, from my own 2 cents, I know the editors of the 2 local papers. Neither one of them are really, it doesn't seem interested in going hard after the stuff that's out there. I think they just want things to carry on without too much discourse.
I'm not sure if I agree with that.
We
because
break dramatic stories week in and week out that the public
This is the only place you see them.
Craves to know. And then you would think, once we broke a dramatic story that everybody wants to hear about on this show, you'd think I would pick up the 2 newspapers the following week and see these stories.
Oh, did you get a phone call about it or something?
Not once. Ever. And these are things
you guys should be volunteer reporters for these guys.
We volunteer enough of our time.
They just don't have the depth to do that. But I want to debate this man. I want to sit across from him and ask the questions and answer and have him explain all this. Explain why Michelle Fiore went on Karen Jackson's show yesterday and said that James Oscarson had been accused of sexually harassing his attaché in Carson City. If it's not true, what's the answer? We ask him these questions in the paper, but he won't answer it. Are you monogamous with your wife? Okay, I'm a guy that dates a lot of girls because I can, and I'm single. That's my lifestyle that I chose. But if you're running for office and you're lying about your marriage vows, which it sounds like that might have happened, what can we trust this guy with? Can we trust him on our guns? Where are we going to go on water rights? You know where he's going on water rights. They're going to try to take away 75% of the well owner's right to pump water. It's not a water right, it's a right to pump water. And why is that? Look at the contribution. These guys here in town, these Havens, is that that's the name?
The Havens, yeah.
Havens. They give him lots of money. And you know when it gets down to the end, he's going to vote with Sandoval to take our, you won't be able to have a tree.
Well, what we're talking about is domestic well allocation versus water rights. Water rights are different than domestic well allocation. But if you're living on a domestic well, you're allowed to pull 2 acre-feet a year out of that. And there's, it's based on numbers, not on actual measurement with meters and such. But they want to meter everybody and cut them by 75% down to half an acre-foot.
I stood up in front of the Well Owners Association.
And that's regardless of the size of your property. I live on a huge piece of property with many acres. But if somebody else, and I have 1 well on there, if somebody else has a half an acre, we both are going to be able to pump the same 2 acres or half acre.
And this is because the politicians, through their bureaucracy, have overallocated
overallocated
the water rights essentially to developers.
And they're not enforcing the use it or lose it. You know, with water rights is a gamble. It's
actually
risk.
Water privileges.
Yeah,
because they can take them.
Exactly, but the deal is if you don't use them in a certain period of time, you lose them.
Right.
You have to use them. So there's people down here south of town. They're telling me that these big guys are pumping tons of water up into the air when other people's wells are gone down so low they're having to dig deeper.
Yep.
Right.
Ed Goodhart had a long talk on the radio station yesterday about that, and it's like I don't have any water. I'm digging deeper while these other people are pumping this water up in the air just to show usage.
Yeah, the use it or lose it is ridiculous, and I call it a water privilege. Essentially, it's a lease, and if you don't use it, you lose it. It's ridiculous.
The bottom line to it all is that James Oscarson is not going to vote the right way. He's going to vote for us to get our water rights cut by 3/4, and we know he's going to do it. And you just look at the money. These havens haven't given me any money. I wouldn't take any money from these guys.
Right.
No way, because I don't think it's right. I own a bunch of lots. I own 40 lots out there in Crystal. I own stuff in Amargosa, and I'm just perplexed that you wouldn't have enough water to water a darn juniper. You'd be able to brush your teeth and flush your toilets. So that's it.
Well, and we don't have to, when we say we know how he's going to vote, we don't really have to speculate in a difficult way, because we can see his past track record. Special interests pay him. That's the way he votes. He's not voting for the best interest of his constituents.
Let's take this to another area of the state legislature, too. We have our state senator, Pete Goycochea, who is a member of the Nevada Senate Republican caucus. Now, in these various caucuses, the Senate and the Assembly, they have essentially subject matter experts that they lean towards. Everybody leans towards Pete for water stuff. Even in the Assembly, they lean towards Pete. Pete and his family own all kinds of pre-1905 solidified water rights, the really valuable water rights.
Rights, not privileges.
Rights, not privileges. And if the reduction of water and domestic wells and other water rights goes away, their family fortune dramatically increases because the value of their pre-1905 water rights goes through the roof. So guess where Pete is leaning? And guess who's listening to Pete?
Yeah.
So these things are ridiculous. That's the same sort of thing that happens from some of the older families in town that own a lot of these rights. Of course, from the utility companies in town that own a lot of these rights, they want to see it restricted because their value goes through the roof. It's a business decision for them. Keep in mind that they anticipate, or I should say they estimate about 20,000 acre-feet of water for the Basin 162 reservoir, which is what we sit on this aquifer, about 20,000 acre-feet a year of replenishment. They have, if every single person and every single entity that used their full allocation, it's over allocated by 5 times, 100,000 gallons could essentially be sucked into this 20,000 gallon pool, or 20,000 acre feet.
Sure.
100,000 could be sucked out by everything that's within law right now, and only 20,000 are there. So the over allocation of a lot of these things, these areas for developers and such as that we didn't have a say on, that's where we're going to take it in the short, so that the politicians
but now you have to
can get in
lose
trouble.
your rights because we overallocated. How is this rational? And many of the private well users aren't using a fraction of what they could use, because everybody knows in Nevada you use things like dryscape. Nobody has great big lawns here like they do in Southern California. So people are not using that volume, but they're still saying, well, you could. So now we have to slash it to make sure you can't.
Yeah, we have to ensure that you don't.
Right.
The Well Owners Association people are supporting me, all of them.
Oh, I bet they
and
are.
and I stood up in their meeting, and I was just mad. And I stole the line from Charlton Heston, and I just looked right at them all and says, they're going to take my gun and the keys to my well house out of my cold dead hands. And it made sense, and everybody stood up and clapped because they feel the same way. They don't take it. Let me just switch a little bit. So I like development. I want growth, organized growth. I get that. There's about 700 houses in this valley that are owned by Bank of America, Wells Fargo, all these people that are sitting there going to heck. And just rotting away because they're afraid if they release them, it will lower the real estate values and they'll have more foreclosures and people will walk away from their properties. We need to force these banks. We need to force these banks to get up and do something. Do something with that land, or we're taking it away from you.
I can attest to that. I owned a house, and the people next to me were going upside down. They just walked away from the house, actually moved to Canada, right? 7 years ago, they walked away from that house. It's still empty.
Bingo.
It's not on the market, and Bank of America is the one that holds the note to it.
And
7 years.
Put their feet to the flames.
And this is in Mountain Falls.
Wow.
Yeah, this is in Mountain Falls.
And you know another thing that really troubles me is while James putting all this special interest money in his pocket and voting for the commerce tax to he put this enormous tax on us. Where are you with the federal government? Because when I go in there, I want to get that federal government to say, excuse me, you destroyed 1.7 billion gallons of water with the test site, $40 billion worth of water. Pay us, make us whole. Then we'll start talking about all the rest of this stuff. And where's he at on that? Ed Goodhart proposed a bill. I think 42 of the people voted for it, and it kind of got put on the side. And James said he would go in and revitalize this and push it through this bill. He didn't do it. He just let it sit, and Ed's infuriated. Ed's
that's
a good man.
because Ed pissed James off by holding James's feet to the fire, and James didn't like that. He got to the point where he returned Ed's contribution that he and his wife made to James's campaign, so he didn't have to hear it anymore. He could literally say, "You gave me, I returned your money. I don't have to take your phone calls anymore." Which tells me what? Whose phone calls is he taking?
Oh, there you go. Right.
Over the hill. They can get
So
to
if he's
it. But it's not more than just giving the money back. That's how he did it. He took the check out of his pocket, wadded it up, and said, here's your money. I don't know what I would do if somebody did that to me. I was kind enough to give the man a substantial amount of money, and then the man throws the check in my face, not his check, to repay me in his face.
Disrespect.
It's temperament. Michelle Fiore says she calls him the Pillsbury very doughboy. So he jumps up and down like a baby, screaming and yelling if he doesn't get his way in the legislature. It's temperament. It's taxes.
For me, it's all about the votes. I know James. I'll still sit down and have a beer with him. I have no problem doing that. But I have told him, and he and I have an understanding, I won't vote for you for public office anymore because you violated my trust in far too many ways. After I went out of my way as chairman of the County Republican Party to help you, along with a lot of other people, we feel as though we have been wronged. So I'm not going to stand by you because you're my friend. I'm going to stand by a good legislator. There's a thing called the Peter Principle, and when you can't vote the way that your constituents expect you to vote, the Peter Principle is in effect. You're not qualified for that job.
Well, as we wrap up in our final 9 seconds, Dennis Hof, District
Vote
36.
Hof.
He's the guy you want to vote for. He's the guy who's going to represent you.
Early voting begins this Saturday.
I'll be there.
We'll see you next week.
See you next week.